I still remember her voice that night, sharp, cold, and final. "I don't want you in my life anymore, Evelyn. You've done enough damage." Those were the last words my sister, Mary, said to me before she slammed the door in my face. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that seeps through your coat and into your bones. I stood there on her porch, holding a little birthday gift for her daughter, my niece. She didn't even let me hand it over. She just looked at me like I was a stranger. I wanted to scream, to remind her that I raised her after Mom died, that I sacrificed everything so she could have a better life. But all I could whisper was, "I'm sorry, Mary," before the sound of the lock echoed through the rain. You know, betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes, it comes from the person you love the most. Hi everyone, my name's Evelyn, and if you're listening right now, thank you for being here. Before I tell you what happened after that night, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Maybe you've lived through something like this too. You can even share a small part of your own story down below, because sometimes, healing begins when we speak our truth. I hadn't spoken to my sister in years, and yet we used to be inseparable when we were young. She was my shadow. Every morning, I'd braid her hair, pack her lunch, and remind her to wear Mom's little silver locket, the one she never took off. After our parents died, I was only 18, but I became both her sister and her mother. Life wasn't kind to us. I worked long hours at a diner, sometimes double shifts, while taking night classes, just so Mary could finish school. When she finally got into college, I felt proud. I thought maybe all the pain and struggle were worth it. She eventually married young, had a beautiful daughter named Ella, and built a comfortable life in the suburbs. I visited every weekend, cooking her favorite meals, helping with Ella's homework, and laughing together late into the night. Those were the happiest years of my life. But happiness doesn't last forever. After her husband, Tom, lost his job, everything started to fall apart. The tension grew, the arguments became louder, and suddenly, I became the problem. Mary would say things like, "You always think you know better, Evelyn," or "This isn't your family, stop interfering." I never meant to interfere. I was just trying to help, the way I always had. But one night, things went too far. Tom had been drinking, and he shouted at her, at Ella, right there in the living room. I couldn't stand it, so I stepped in. I told him to stop, told him he needed to leave. He pushed me hard, and I fell against the table. Before I could even stand, Mary turned on me. Her face twisted with anger, and she screamed, "Get out, Evelyn. You've done enough." That was the night she told me to leave her life forever. For weeks, I replayed those words in my head. I stopped going to church, stopped talking to friends, even stopped answering the phone. I felt empty, like a part of me had been erased. I had given everything to my sister, my youth, my dreams, my peace, and in one cruel moment, she made me feel like a burden. But one cold morning, 6 months later, something happened that changed everything. There was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I froze. Standing there was little Ella, my niece, her small body shivering from the cold, holding a letter in her trembling hand. Her eyes were full of tears. That moment, it felt like the world stopped turning. I took the letter from her, my hands shaking. It had Maya's handwriting on it. The envelope was wrinkled, damp, and stained with tears. I didn't know what to expect, an apology, a cry for help, or maybe more blame. But what was written inside was something I could have never imagined. The moment I opened that envelope, my hands trembled so much I could barely hold the paper. The smell of damp ink filled the air as I unfolded it slowly. Each word felt heavy, like it carried years of pain I didn't know about. The letter began with shaky handwriting, the kind that told me Mary had been crying before she wrote it. Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't find the courage to face you in person. I was wrong. I was so terribly wrong. I stopped breathing for a second. Those were words I had been waiting to hear for months, maybe years. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. The letter continued. Tom left me. He took everything, the car, the savings, even Ella's college fund. I was angry, scared, and I took it out on you. You were only trying to protect me. But I let pride control me. I said things I can never take back. I had to sit down. My knees went weak, and tears filled my eyes. The sound of the rain outside mixed with the soft sobs coming from little Layla, who stood near the door, clutching her tiny backpack. I looked at her. She was wearing a worn-out sweater, her hair messy, her eyes red from crying. She looked so small, so fragile. I don't know where to go, the letter continued. I'm losing everything. But most of all, I've lost you. Ella misses you every day. She keeps asking why her Aunt Evelyn doesn't visit anymore. Please, don't hate me. I don't deserve your kindness, but she does. My tears blurred the words, but I kept reading, desperate to reach the end. If I don't make it through this, please take care of her. I trust you more than anyone. You always knew how to love better than I ever could. That last line broke me. My hands went cold, and the letter slipped from my fingers onto the table. I turned to Ella, knelt down, and wrapped my arms around her. She clung to me so tightly that it felt like she was holding on for her life. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered, my voice shaking. You're safe now. I've got you. She cried against my shoulder, and I let her. The sound of her little sobs filled the room, that soft, painful sound that only a child in fear can make. I wanted to ask where Mary was, what had happened, but I couldn't bring myself to say a word. I was scared of the answer. Finally, Ella whispered, Mom said she'll come for me soon, she just needs a little time. That night, I made her a warm meal, tucked her into bed, and sat beside her until she fell asleep. She looked peaceful, for the first time in what must have been weeks. I stayed up all night, staring at the letter again and again, reading every word like it was a map back to the sister I once knew. When the morning light came through the curtains, I decided to go find Mary. I didn't care what she'd said before. I didn't care about pride or anger anymore. She was still my sister. I drove for hours, searching every place I could think of, her old house, her favorite cafe, even the church we used to attend together. Nothing. No one had seen her. Just when I was about to lose hope, I saw her car, parked near the old bridge outside town. I pulled over fast, ran through the cold wind, calling her name. She was sitting on a bench by the water, wrapped in a thin coat, her hair messy, her face pale and tired. When she saw me, her eyes widened, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of the river filled the silence. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, "You shouldn't have come." I took a step closer. "And you shouldn't have tried to face all this alone." She broke down. Tears poured from her eyes, and she covered her face with her hands. I sat beside her and held her close. She kept saying, "I'm sorry, Evelyn." I don't know what came over me. I just wanted to feel in control. I didn't know I was losing everything. I told her, you haven't lost everything. You still have Ella. You still have me. We sat there for a long time, two broken sisters, bound by the same blood and the same mistakes. When she finally looked up at me, I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years: humility. I thought I was stronger than you, she whispered, but the truth is, you've always been the strong one. I smiled softly. No, Mary. We both just forgot what strength really means. As the sun began to set behind the river, she turned to me and said something I'll never forget. I want to come home. And that's when I realized, sometimes, home isn't a place. It's the people who forgive you even after you've broken their hearts. But little did I know, that reunion was just the calm before the storm. Because what happened next would test our bond like never before. It was 2 weeks after that moment by the river when everything seemed to be finally settling down. Mary moved into my small house with Ella. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms and an old kitchen that smelled of cinnamon and coffee, but it felt warm again. For the first time in years, the walls echoed with laughter instead of silence. I'd wake up early to make breakfast, and Mary would hum softly as she brushed Ella's hair. It almost felt like we were little girls again, back in our childhood home, when Mom would braid our hair and tell us, no matter what happens, you girls always hold on to each other. But peace has a strange way of testing you. One cold evening, I noticed Mary sitting by the window, staring out into the dark. The rain was falling hard, and the street light outside cast a pale glow on her face. She looked lost again, haunted, almost. I asked, "What's wrong?" She hesitated before answering, "There's something I haven't told you." My heart sunk. I had a bad feeling. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. When Tom left, she said, it wasn't just about the money or the house. I signed some papers for him. I didn't know what I was doing, I was desperate. He told me it was for refinancing, but I found out later. I signed over Mom and Dad's old property. The one you worked so hard to keep after they died. I froze. That property was everything our parents had left us. After they passed, I had spent years paying off the remaining taxes, fixing the roof, and keeping it in our name. I felt anger bubbling inside me, but when I looked at her, eyes swollen from guilt and fear, I couldn't bring myself to yell. She whispered, "I wanted to fix it before telling you. But I couldn't. I didn't want to lose you again." For a moment, all I could hear was the rain. Then I said quietly, "Mary, you don't lose someone by telling them the truth. You lose them by hiding it." She started crying, and I wrapped my arms around her. "We'll fix this," I said. Together. The next morning, we went to the county office. The lady at the desk looked at us with sympathy as she flipped through the files. "You're lucky," she said. "The final sale hasn't been processed yet. You can still contest it." My heart flooded with relief. Mary let out a shaky laugh, wiping her tears. "You see," I said to her, smiling softly, "even life gives second chances if you're brave enough to ask for them." We spent the next few days gathering documents, calling lawyers, and retracing every mistake. It wasn't easy. There were moments Mary almost gave up, moments I had to remind her, "You've already survived worse." And through it all, Ella watched us, two women, once divided by pride, now standing shoulder to shoulder. One night, as I was tucking her into bed, she looked up at me and said, "Aunt Evelyn, Mom says you saved her." I smiled. "No, sweetie. We saved each other." Weeks later, We got the letter we had been waiting for. The property was officially returned to our name. I held it in my hands, and for a long time, I couldn't stop crying. Not because of the land itself, but because of what it represented. Forgiveness, healing, family. Mary and I went back to that old house one last time. The porch was falling apart, and the paint had long faded, but it still smelled like home. She ran her hand across the railing and whispered, "I don't deserve this." I looked at her and said, "None of us ever really deserve forgiveness, Mary. We honored by not repeating what broke us." She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me." I placed my hand over hers. "I never could," I said softly. "Because no matter what, you're my sister." We stood there in silence as the wind brushed through the trees. It was one of those rare, quiet moments when time seems to pause, when pain turns into peace. As the sun set, the light hit the house just right, making it look alive again, like it was waiting for us all along. Now, as I sit here years later, in this same small home, telling this story to my granddaughter, I realize something I wish I had known sooner. Family isn't about never falling apart. It's about finding your way back, again and again, no matter how broken things get. I looked at her, her young eyes full of curiosity, and said, "Remember this, sweetheart. Sometimes people you love will hurt you. Sometimes they'll walk away. But forgiveness doesn't make you weak, it makes you free." She smiled, resting her little head on my arm. Outside, the rain started to fall again, just like it did that first night Mary told me to leave her life. But this time, it didn't sound sad. It sounded like peace. And maybe that's what life is about, losing, forgiving, and finding your way home again.